Afternoon. Thank you for joining us today. We will be getting started just shortly. We appreciate you guys taking your time to come and join us in our meeting today. We'll get started probably around 1:05.
105.
Well, I just want to give everybody enough time to get on the call. It does start at 1 o'clock. So just giving everybody ample opportunity to get to the call.
Okay, that's 12 o'clock
Oh,
Alabama
excuse me,
time.
12 o'clock. My apologies. Sorry about that.
That's why I said
I
105.
was like 1:05 because that's what I see. I apologize. It's definitely 12:05.
Okay, that's fine.
All
Do I
righty.
need to mute myself?
No, yes, you can go ahead and mute yourself, and we'll have opportunity for you guys to ask questions and all of that at the end of our presentation and even during.
Oh, okay, so can we leave it unmuted? Will it cause any kind of interference?
We prefer it to be muted just in case any background noise won't affect the other listeners on the call.
Okay, all right.
Great, thank you.
You're welcome.
Good afternoon. We'd like to welcome everyone and thank you for joining us today for the virtual informational webinar. We'll be getting started just shortly. We'll just allow some time to ensure everyone can get on the call, but thank you again for taking the time to join us today, and we'll be getting started very soon.
Good afternoon, everyone. It will get started about 5 after. Okay, again, good afternoon. Welcome to the City of Birmingham, Alabama 2021 Disparity Study Informational Webinar. I would ask that if you would keep yourself on mute until we finished our presentation, and then we'll be open for questions. And if you have questions, you can either raise your hand or you can put your questions in the chat room. So my name is Michelle Clark Jenkins. I head the consulting division of Griffin and Strong, and I'm also the project manager on this disparity study. With me this afternoon, I also have Omika Edmondson, who is the deputy project manager, and Marcus Garner. I think I saw Marcus on. Marcus Garner, who is our anecdotal analyst. At the end of our presentation, we will be taking questions and comments. So Marcus is here to listen because at the end of the day, he'll be the one who kind of writes the story of what we hear from the community in Birmingham. So I will go ahead and get started. First slide, Omika. So I guess the first question for some of you, because there hasn't been a disparity study in quite a long time in Birmingham, is what is a disparity study? A disparity study is an objective research tool that determines whether a governmental agency has actively or passively discriminated against certain groups due to their race or gender. Now, that discrimination is not necessarily current discrimination. It can be the current effects of past discrimination. And we determine that through an analysis of both statistical data and anecdotal evidence, which is the evidence we collect based on your experiences, as well as we examine the current policies and practices and procedures of the City of Birmingham. So the findings of our study will result in recommendations by our team to remedy any discrimination or disparities that we find. And if our recommendations are accepted, they are intended to be implemented as policy. Next slide. So let me introduce our firm to you. Griffin and Strong, we are a law and public policy consulting firm based in Atlanta, Georgia. We've been in this business for 28 years. We specialize in disparity research, contract compliance, program development, training and supplier diversity consulting. We have a really strong team of experts in this area. We have 4 attorneys, we have 2 PhD economists, a PhD social psychologist, and a PhD candidate in anthropology. And all of them have expertise in this area of disparity research, and all of them are hands-on in our studies. Disparity studies are a kind of ripe plum for being challenged because of the kind of programs they put in place. And none of our studies have ever been challenged or overturned in court. Next. So I want to introduce you even further to our project team. So this is me, Michelle Clark Jenkins. I've been with Griffin and Strong for 12 years. I've done over 30 studies. I've also done the goal setting for Hartsfield-Jackson International Airport, the goal settings for several years for Georgia Department of Transportation. Next slide, please. Mika Edmondson, who's again on with us, her expertise really is in the area of project management and outreach. So you will talk to or see Omika along the way. She's responsible for coordinating all of our community engagement. Next slide. Our principal investigator is Dr. Vince Egan. He has done over 120 disparity studies. Again, we haven't been challenged, but he has been an expert witness in 6 cases and successfully defended those studies in those cases. Dr. Egan will be the one who really oversees our methodology. He is currently also a professor at Morehouse College here in Atlanta. Next. Our senior economist is Dr. Greg Price. He also was formerly the chair of the economics department at Morehouse. He's a theorist, economic theorist. What he helps us with is many times government data has some gaps in it. And so we use the economist to help us to fill in those gaps. He's done over 20 studies with us, and he is now teaching at the University of New Orleans. Next. David Maher is our legal partner here at the firm. He's done over 14 studies. He's got expertise in the 11th Circuit in the Court of Appeals, which is important because disparity studies, which I'll explain later, are really creations of the court. And so you've got to understand the law in this area. So David is invaluable to our team. Next. Omar Baig, we have him here as data analyst, but he likes to refer to himself as a data scientist. You know, disparity studies are very data driven and statistics heavy. So we need, you know, some minds to help us to both organize and analyze the data. Next. Marcus Gardner, who I mentioned is on the call with us today. Marcus is our anecdotal analyst. He takes all of the anecdotal evidence, and you'll see there's a lot of it that we gather in this disparity study, and he lays it all out and tries to tell the story of what the community and business owners are saying in the city of Birmingham. He is a former senior reporter for the Atlanta Journal and Constitution and has his degree, his master's in journalism. Next. Susan Johnson is our director of project administration. She's done over 30 studies. She kind of keeps us in order. Next. We have a couple of sub-consultants. Dr. Travis Tatum conducts our surveys. We do a survey of business owners. He is also on this study assisting Omar Baig with data analysis. Next. Bukhari Niruddin is the owner of Niruddin Law Company. He's also working with us to collect anecdotal evidence. Next. And then most importantly is our CEO, Rodney Strong. He's the Strong in Griffin and Strong. This is all Rodney's ever done his whole career. He's from Memphis. He went to school at Morehouse and got involved with Maynard Jackson's first term as mayor in Atlanta, helping him campaign and stayed engaged all the way along. And he was the former director of contract compliance for the city of Atlanta and he was the project manager on the first post-Croson, and I'll talk about what Croson is in a minute, disparity study. He was also the principal architect of Atlanta's EBO program, which is the model for the nation. A lot of programs throughout the country are based on the EBO program that got put in place under Maynard Jackson's administration. He's also nationally known, and he's testified before the US Senate Committee on Small Business and Entrepreneurship. Next. So I want to talk about really what goes into a disparity study. What is this all about? So this is our study process. The disparity study takes about a year to complete because there are so many different moving pieces to it. We do a legal analysis. Again, these are creations of the court. Very important part of this is we look at all the policies, practices, and procedures of the city of Birmingham to kind of see if there's anything that that would cause a barrier there. And I'll talk about some of the rest of these a little bit more in detail. Largest part of this study is collecting and cleaning data. Data. That's what this is kind of all about. And then we do an analysis of relevant market. We look at utilization and availability. When we compare those two, we find out what the disparity is. We also look at the private sector. Again, I'll explain these in a minute, each on a slide. We look at anecdotal evidence, and then eventually we come to a findings and recommendations and the final report. Next. So again, the question is why and how do we do disparity studies? So I mentioned this case Croson. So this is where it all began. There was a time when everybody sort of recognized societal discrimination and said, well, we have to put these remedial programs in place. And really the federal government was the first to do it. They had like a 10% set aside program that went back actually to the late 60s. And a lot of local governments and states kind of followed suit with their programs. Some having, 30% set asides or goals based on their population. So this case came up through the courts and eventually went to the Supreme Court in 1989. There was a decision. And in the Croson case, the court really said these kinds of programs run afoul of the 14th Amendment. 14th Amendment has a number of parts to it, but one part of it pretty much says everybody has to be treated the same way. So if you have these preference programs, even though you think you're fixing something, it's no different than malevolent discrimination. So malevolent preferences, when you're discriminating against someone and treating one group differently than the other, or when you're trying to benefit one group, looking at the other end of the coin and treating a group differently, they're the same in the eyes of the Constitution, the 14th Amendment. The court, though, went further and said, however, we looked at these kind of programs through the guise of strict scrutiny. And any of you who may be attorneys know that that strict scrutiny was always considered fatal. In other words, if the court said strict scrutiny applied to something, that meant you couldn't overcome it. Well, Rodney, along with a number of other attorneys and economists who had been watching this case come up through the courts, kind of came up with this answer to it, which is the court also said that there had to be a compelling governmental issue in order to overcome the question of the 14th Amendment. So you have to have a factual basis in evidence that demonstrates a compelling state interest for giving a preference based on race. Later, it was talked about gender, but this case was really about race. It also said that anything you do as a result of that factual predicate, which we now call a disparity study, had to be narrowly tailored to not be overly or underly inclusive in its remedies. It also said you have to really look at race neutral remedies to fix a problem before you go to race conscious remedies. You don't have to exhaust all race neutral remedies, but you have to take a serious look at those first. So that's why we do disparity studies, because without them, governments cannot have a race or gender-based preference program or goals or anything like that that has anything to do with race and gender without first establishing this factual predicate and, in essence, proving the existence of discrimination. And what the court said is societal discrimination isn't enough. In the Croson case, one of the things they pointed out was that you don't even know if you're talking about an industry, let's say the construction industry, and you're saying it discriminates. They didn't even measure, were there minority-owned construction companies? And if there weren't minority-owned construction companies, then how could you be discriminating? So and there is an issue of what happens in the marketplace, not just what the government entity is doing, but is there discrimination in the marketplace? And you just can't look at population, because population may not be indicative of the availability of firms in the marketplace. I know some of you will have questions about this, but hold the questions till the end. Next slide, please. So again, we look at what are the policies that the City of Birmingham has. Do any of them as written present a barrier to MWB inclusion? Do personnel understand what the policies and procedures are as they're written? And is there a difference between the policies and the practices? So what we're trying to look at is, are there policies and procedures that could be modified to promote better MWBE inclusion? Next slide. And what data is needed? So we look at a lot of different data. We look at bidders, vendors, payments, awards, subcontractors, certified list, and we're looking at a 5-year period. So we're looking at 2016, 17, 18, I'm sorry, 15, 16, 17, 18, and 19. It's all city offices and departments. It's all categories of, it's construction services and goods. It's formal and informal procurements. And we will be, excuse me, we will be looking at some third-party data. Okay, next slide, please. So data, we do a lot of cleaning of the data. Again, I mentioned filling in data gaps. We're very transparent in our processes. So when you read the study, hopefully you'll be able to see exactly what we did. Next. So when we look at, one of the places we have to start in our analysis is what are the parameters for what we're studying? What are the geographic parameters? So the geographic parameters are not just the city of Birmingham. So we kind of borrow from antitrust law and we say, okay, what is the geographic area, starting with Birmingham and kind of radiating out, where they're spending at least 75% of their dollars, because that's where their offerors are coming from. So the people who are doing business right now with the city of Birmingham, where does that stretch out to? So is that Birmingham? Does it include the county? Does it include the surrounding counties? Is it the whole state of Alabama? How far does that marketplace go where at least 75% of their dollars are being spent? And we do look at it industry by industry. So construction, services, and goods will be looked at separately. We also have to determine what is their product market. So if you offer hairdressing services, but the city's not buying hairdresser services, then hairdressers aren't part of our analysis. Next. So available firms, that's a big thing for disparity studies. And it's, if a disparity study or a program is challenged, it is usually right here with what are available firms and how do you define that? So our definition is we look at firms that have at least made an effort to try to do business with government. Not every firm feels like it's ready, willing, and able to do business with government. So at least if a firm has gone so far as to certify or to register or to bid or actually become a vendor for a government entity, we would consider them ready, willing, and able. Next. Utilization is pretty straightforward. Who did you buy goods and services from, both as prime and as subcontractors? Next. So where this study gets its name is the disparity analysis, and the disparity analysis is a comparison of percentages between availability and utilization. So if I have 100 engineering firms in the Birmingham marketplace, what we call a relevant market, and 10 of them are Black-owned engineering firms, I have a 10% availability. But when I look at the dollars that the city of Birmingham is spending with engineering firms, and I find they're spending 2% of their engineering dollars with Black-owned firms, I now have a 2% utilization and a 10% availability, which is a disparity. I then have to test that disparity to say, is it statistically significant? If I'm comparing a 2% utilization to a 10% availability, that is going to be a statistically significant disparity. But if it was 9% compared to 10%, probably not. Next. So we have to take this one step further. And one, we have to look at what was the cause of the disparity. So if I have a disparity, we kind of equalize a number of things that could have caused the disparity other than the race and gender of the owner. And if there's still a disparity after we've equalized that in a regression analysis, then we can make a legal inference of discrimination. But then we go one step further. and we look at what's happening in the marketplace. So outside of the city spend, is there discrimination in the marketplace? A really good example of this and why we have to go further is in some not too distant past, if you had looked at the Birmingham marketplace, you would have seen 0 Black-owned or minority-owned construction companies. And so that would have been 0 availability, and you would have had 0 utilization. And so the answer to that would have been no discrimination. There aren't any, we didn't use any. So what's called a private sector analysis goes a little deeper and says, why aren't there any? And it looks at the likelihood of self-employment. It looks at credit markets and credit discrimination. And again, it's looking at what can be explained about the availability. It's almost a but-for analysis. But for discrimination, would there be a higher availability of firms in the marketplace? Next. Oh, wrong way. Okay, so now this is where some of you come in, the anecdotal evidence. Anecdotal evidence gets kind of a bad rap because people say, well, that's not really evidence, that's one person's opinion or one person's experience. And that may be true. But if we talk to 500 or 1,000 firms and 25% of them say one thing, it's now no longer one person's opinion. So we do try to quantify anecdotal evidence. So it's not one person said, I have a problem with this, or one person said they have a problem. So what we're trying to do is get an understanding of what's going on with doing business with the city of Birmingham. So almost all of our anecdotal starts with the question, tell us about your experience. What has been your experience doing business with the city of Birmingham or attempting to do business with them? And if you haven't attempted to do business with them, why not? And we get that information. We'll probably get a little bit of it today, which is some of you may give us some information today that helps us to understand what's happening in the marketplace. We do some in-depth anecdotal interviews. Those are selected randomly. We do a survey of business owners, which gets distributed to every possible business, both minority and non-minority, that we can find, and we ask a whole bunch of questions. And every firm can participate in this survey of business owners. We do an open public hearing. Actually, we're doing 2 of those. So all of you will be able to participate in that. That'll happen sometime, I believe, in the spring. Focus groups, we're doing 2 of those. Those are, again, randomly selected. We engage civic, trade organizations, social organizations. So if some of you are members of some of these organizations that you think we need to tap into, again, put them in the chat room, email it to us, let us know the different organizations that we should be in touch with. And then at the end of the day, if you haven't been contacted or you couldn't come to the public hearings, you can always email us your experiences, and we have a dedicated email address. Next. So at the end of the study, what happens? We give the city our findings. We give them our recommendations. And this is why your participation in the anecdotal evidence part, if you are called on or if you can attend, is critical, because you are going to be a part of how policy is made. So our recommendations are very heavily based on what we hear from the business community. We hear something over and over again from you all, and it starts to tell a story. We translate that into a finding, and that finding very easily translates into a recommendation. We also have done studies all over the country for the past 28 years. So it's also based on our expertise and our understanding of best practices. What is everybody else doing that seems to be working? And it's also based on looking at your policies, at the city's policies, and are they best practices? Again, our recommendations, we look at both race and gender neutral remedies, and we look at race and gender conscious remedies. I will tell you that there are some times when race and gender neutral remedies work better than race and gender conscious remedies. And the reason for that is that with race and gender conscious remedies, you are under a pretty, that strict scrutiny thing is still a pretty heavy microscope. And so you have certain, you're kind of hemmed in a little bit on what you can do. When it's race and gender neutral, like certain small business program aspects, we have a lot more leeway because you don't have that strict scrutiny. Something that's not race and gender conscious, in other words, it's neutral, like a small business program, will in fact allow you, all you have to do is have a rational basis test. You just have to have a reason for why you're doing it. So there's a lot more leeway you can put in place. And if you do some things that are small business related, and a lot of your small businesses are minority and women-owned firms, they are going to benefit by that and may benefit extensively by some of those programs. Next. So after the study is completed, we roll out the study. We try to get, and what we'll work with the city to do is not just announce the outcome of the study, but also talk about how it wants to move forward with our recommendations. Next. And so how you all can get involved. If you are asked to participate in either an anecdotal interview or in the survey or in the focus groups, please say yes. Attend the public hearing and provide your input. We are pretty good. We will do press release. We'll do email blasts. So make sure that we have your emails. We do it, which we will have from your participation today. But we do email blasts. Some of these are done by phone in terms of trying to reach people for interviews. We'll call you by telephone to do that. We try and get on all the community calendars. And then of course, the city itself hopefully will post at all of our upcoming meetings. So hopefully no one misses what we're doing. And you can always email us at bhamdisparitystudy@gspclaw.com. Omika mans that email address and checks it every day and will respond to you pretty quickly. Next. We also have a dedicated website for the study. So if you miss and you go, well, gee, when was that going to come up, that public hearing? Go to our website, real easy to remember, birminghamdisparitystudy.com. It's up and running now, and it'll give you upcoming dates, give you information. This presentation will be posted there after we conclude today. And of course, you can always follow us on Twitter or Facebook or LinkedIn. Okay, next. So this is our timetable. Fall, we completed data assessment, we completed our legal review, we're having this information meeting, launched our website. Winter, we'll be completing the policies and procedures review and collecting data. Further in the winter of 2021, we'll be doing the survey of business owners and preparing databases. In the spring, we'll be collecting more anecdotal evidence. The private sector analysis will be done. The disparity analysis will be completed. And then in the late summer, we'll be finishing our findings and recommendations and our draft of the study. Okay, that's it. So if anyone has questions, please raise your hand. I see a question from Greg Morris Sr. What percentage of minority businesses are doing business with the City of Birmingham now, and what is the future projection? So the answer to that is exactly what our study is about. We don't know the answer to that yet. When we're in the process of collecting data, and we're collecting 5 years worth of all of the city spend, and we'll be able to tell you that when the study is complete. That's probably the central to the outcome of the study, and we are just starting that now. Anyone else have their hand up? Oh, you all are so easy. No hands are up. No questions? Comments?
Can I ask a question? I'm not on the Zoom.
Yes, go ahead,
I'm
please.
on my iPhone because I'm at a job site. Can I ask a question, please? This is
Sure.
Pat Sue with Gowder Construction. In your presentation, I don't think there was a focal point. Is there a specific area of concentration that you are doing a disparity study on, or is it in general?
It is on all of the city spend for the past 5 years. Where have them
Okay.
been spending their dollars and with whom? And at the end of the day, what we're going to show you is what percentage of all of those dollars broken down by industry are going to minority and women owned firms. And by the way, we do break it down by each ethnicity. So we'll show you in construction, in services, and in goods, what percentage of those dollars are going to Black American-owned firms, Asian American-owned firms, Hispanic American-owned firms, Native American-owned firms, and Caucasian women-owned firms, as well as the non-minority firms.
Okay, and that information, I think you said will come out in the fall.
Yeah, it takes about a year.
Okay, and at that point, there will be an assessment of the entire city's dollar spent for 5 years.
Yes.
Okay. Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. In the chat room, yes, goods, constructions, goods and services will be looked at separately. So there'll be an analysis. The tables will all be, when you look at the report and the analysis, there'll be construction, goods will be separate, and then other services will be separated.
Okay. Can I ask another question?
Sure.
Okay. Will there be a separation of women-owned businesses in construction, or will it just be would it entail everybody in the construction area in the city?
So there is an analysis, and this really goes to the availability of data, is going to be ethnicities, and then the woman-owned is going to be non-minority women. So in other words, if you are Black American, then it is all Black Americans in a group. However, our survey does disaggregate and allow you to see see the responses of minority women as compared to minority men. So in our survey, you'll be able to see that disaggregated, but the analysis itself is ethnicity over gender. And so you're looking at all Black-owned businesses, all Hispanic-owned businesses together. And then we do look at non-minority women, and then what in essence is probably non-minority men, but it also includes public entities in that non-MWBE category, is everything that is not women or minorities.
Greg Morris has a question.
Yes.
Okay, what percentage of ethnicity that is involved with this process of pulling the information together, and were they involved in the rules and regulations that you set your criteria to?
So you're saying who's pulling the data for us?
No, what percentage of ethnicities are involved in pulling that information together, and also what percentage of ethnicities was involved in setting the rules and regulation, the guidelines that y'all looking for to determine your final decision on whether there's disparity or not?
So you're saying who's doing the study?
Now, ethnicity, what percentage of ethnicity involved in that process? In other words, to make it plain and simple, how many blacks and white, green, red, and blue are participating in that aspect of the information that y'all gathering, or in the information that y'all use to set the rules and standards, whether there is a disparity or not, or any blacks, white, green, whatever in there, in the final rules.
So you're saying, again, it sounds like you're asking who's conducting the study, who's doing the work.
It might sound that way to you, but now my point is, for y'all to come up with what you're saying you're doing, different ethnicity need to be involved in that process. That's all I'm saying. And that's the question is, what percentage of the different ethnicities?
Oh, got it.
Yeah.
Who's going to participate? Okay.
Yeah, there you go.
So the statistical part of it is just what it is. There's not it's a statistical thing. In other words, we're pulling every dollar that the city of Birmingham spent. So there's no, on the statistical side of it, it's everybody who got spent or is a vendor or who, so on the utilization side, it is what it is. Every dollar they spent and who did it go to? When we talk about availability, that's something we have to figure out. We pull every governmental list we can find. Ready, willing, and able, we are defining as anybody who has at least expressed an interest in doing business with government by at least registering somewhere to do business with government. We also, in terms of identifying firms, you would need to be certified. So because there's no way we can determine that a firm is a Black-owned firm or a woman-owned firm unless you've certified. So we're looking at, so we'll pull in all of the MDOT, all of the state, all the unified certification list, the BCIA list, every list we can find that tells us that a firm that we can rely on, that tells us the ethnicity of a firm, we're pulling those in order to identify the ethnicity and gender of firms. When a talk comes to anecdotal, every firm is invited to participate, no matter your ethnicity. So there's not a percentage. We invite every firm to participate to, in terms of the anecdotal. So every firm has a voice.
Well, that depends on if they're in the loop or not. And for a number of years, minority, particularly blacks, have been left out of the loop. Now, I give you credit, Birmingham, going forward, doing what you are doing today. But there need to be education for those, I say, minority firms who want to play in the game. You need to get some education out there to show them how and the direction as to how to position themselves so they can play in the game. Otherwise, your disparity going to be right where it is today. You don't even know the percentage of minorities that you know, in Birmingham, City of Birmingham. I'm really surprised at that with year 2000.
Right. So that's why we invite firms, even if you're not certified, all firms to participate in bringing their voices to the study. Because if you're a business that hasn't even certified, you don't know how to do business with government, you want to do business with government, you have a need, some sort of developmental or supportive services need, then you have to come and tell us that. You have to come and say, listen, I'm not certified because, and that's one of the questions we ask in our survey. So we try to get our survey to as many firms as we can that's one of the reasons why we engage social, industry, and civic organizations. So the NAACP, the Urban League, any of the ethnic chambers, every organization we can find, we're saying to you, please tell your membership to participate. Because if we don't have you on a government list, then we still want to hear your voice because we want you to tell us. One of the questions in our survey is, are you certified? And if you're not certified, why aren't you? And what do you need? So we do ask a lot of need-based, although this is not a needs assessment study, we do ask a lot of questions about what firms need in order to do business. Why aren't you registered? Why aren't you doing business? And then we ask a lot of freehand questions. Tell us your experiences. Why haven't you done business? What do you need? So firms have to, we'll put out the feelers and we'll try to engage organizations. I will tell you, we've done a lot of these studies, and one of the things I find is that those firms who aren't already engaged, like you said, aren't already kind of certified or registered to do business and may not even know what that means. I mean, we talk to some firms who say, I don't know anything about doing business with government. Yeah, I'd like to be doing that. I know how to do my work, and I'm sure the government can buy my goods and services, but I don't know how to do business with them. If the way we reach those kind of firms is that the organizations get engaged with us. And we have found that one of the shortfalls is that organizations will not get engaged with us. Omika will call them. Do you want to talk to us? Tell us what's going on with your membership. We'll say to them, please send out our flyers to our public hearings for our survey. Please distribute this to your membership, and they don't do it. So the biggest help that we can have for any of you who are associated with organizations, if we're going to reach those firms who are not obvious to us because they don't appear on any list, they may be a home-based business, they may be a DBA who's trying to grow their business and they have something to say in this, then we can't find them unless, because they're probably invisible to us, unless those organizations like trade organizations, civic organizations, social organizations help us to reach them.
That's very good. I thank you for that information, because I'm one of those minority business who's experiencing exactly what you're saying, but you know, it's just a challenge. I put it like that, and I appreciate the effort y'all putting forward to try to enlighten us. But there's a great fear among our community, and I guess because we've been down so much, I don't know. I'm determined to be consistent myself, so that we can open up doors for our future generation. You know.
Well, one of the things I'll say to you is that our firm does disparity studies, but that's not how our firm got started. Our firm got started because our CEO was very vested in seeing effective remedial programs. He wanted to see, but without these disparity studies, you couldn't even legally do these programs. So we're not really, honestly, we're just as interested, if not more interested, in completing this study and doing what we can to have this study make an impact on the wealth disparities in Birmingham. I mean, that's really our focus. We want to see effective programs that affect the wealth disparities in municipalities and counties around this country.
Hi, this is Janet Bryce from Bryce Construction. I have a question. On the invite, I know that you guys are going through a presentation. Will that presentation be emailed to the participants through?
So it won't be emailed to you, but it will be posted on our website, birminghamdisparitystudy.com. When we're done, it will be posted there and you can download it.
Okay. And second question, just kind of going by what the gentleman was speaking about, as a construction company moving into Birmingham area, when you are talking about being certified, are there websites within that we can look for to make sure that we are registered so that we don't miss out the opportunities like the gentleman is saying? It's more about giving, you know, our future generations some work and things like that. So we really want to be part of doing a lot of things with Birmingham. When you say certify, is there a list or a website that I may go to make sure that it is available to me so that I can make sure that my business following protocol?
Michelle, I work with WeBank South, the Women's Business Enterprise Council. We're an affiliate of WeBank, and I've posted my information in the chat area.
Okay, great, great.
And this, can you hear me okay, Michelle? Oh.
Yes, go ahead.
And this is Kim Bivens with BCIA. BCIA certifies women-owned, well, minority and disadvantaged businesses. And our information should be posted as well. And it is on the City of Birmingham's website.
Okay, BCIA.
Can you put the BCIA information in the chat room?
Certainly. Thank you.
Great, thank you.
And thank you, Lance, for putting that information for the Women's Business Enterprise in there. We do see it. Thank you.
And then my last question is, I know this is a great beginning. What's the follow-up or what's the next step? I know this is just kind of starting conversations, but what's the next step to make sure that we are still in the loop, that we are still participating? Will there be another meeting after? I know you say it takes about a year for the analysis, but will there be something mid-year or anything to that nature to kind of give us an update or making sure that we're still up to date and that we're not missing anything?
Right, so the most important thing is, and this will probably start, I believe, Omika, in January. It'll be after the first of the year, because right now we're really trying to gather data. But the anecdotal part will start right after the first of the year, where you'll start to see press releases and emails. You're on our email list, so you'll get the emails that say, please participate in the public hearing. And the public hearing is when you all will come and give testimony to us. And it'll be probably virtual again, and tell us your experiences. Also, there'll be focus groups. So some of you will be selected. Again, that's random. We randomly select those. And then also some of you will be contacted to give in-depth interviews, and you'll become case studies. I think there are 30 or 50, right, Omika? 50 anecdotal interviews with in-depth interviews with business owners. And so you may be selected. Those are just randomly done, but if you're asked, please do that. But we don't have another community meeting. And then I'm assuming that when our study's done, because there's no really such thing as really interim findings. You know, when we get to the end of the study, the legal, the policy, the marketplace, the anecdotal, and the statistical all come together to tell us one big story. And so it's not until the end that we really can tell you the outcome of our study. But we do want to make sure you're engaged. Check our website regularly. We are pretty active on social media to tell you where we are. And of course, come to any of the anecdotal meetings we have. And if you just want to know where we are and whatever we can tell you, call us. We answer the phone. Or send us an email.
This is Pat Seegers again with Gowden. When will you start the surveying? When will you do the survey?
Omika, do you have the schedule up? Can you tell them about when the survey is going to launch? She's going to look that up.
Okay. So all the businesses that you have listed, will all of those businesses receive a survey?
Yes.
And then will you separate the survey based upon on the kind of business? Like
yes, based on, well, it's whether you're construction
yes.
services or goods. Yes.
Yes. Okay. Thank you.
Mm-hmm. Omika, you still looking for the?
No, I have it. I pulled it from the presentation. So according to our timeline, the survey for business owners should be going out around winter of 2021.
Winter of 2021.
In other words, like January.
Yeah.
Yeah, they don't go on. Right now, we're in the process of heavily collecting data.
Yeah.
Like
so
January procurement data.
January of 2021, you're saying for the surveys?
Yes.
Yes.
Because in my opinion, the surveys are the main thing that we will have to provide you information on as far as concerns or issues that we foresee or have seen in the past. Am I correct?
Yes.
Okay, so to me, that's very important that we get those, and if we don't receive them, I guess we'll go to your website and look and see when the information will be provided. Am I correct?
Right. Yes. So one of the reasons it takes us a little while to get the surveys out is that one of the first things we have to do is we have to gather the lists. And that's what we're doing right now is we're starting to get vendor lists and to gather all of the lists that we can get from whatever groups. We'll be talking to BCIA soon. All the lists that we can get, we're in the middle of data collection now. And so in order to contact you, we have to know who you are. And that's us gathering data. So by the time we gather all the data and we know who all of you are, we start to know who all of you are so that we can send out the survey to you all to answer. We don't want to do a survey in the middle of Thanksgiving and Christmas. So we're going to wait until the first year. Remember, the study's not done until, September of next year. So we have plenty of time to get our survey done and get all the results back and leave it up. We leave the survey up for about 5 or 6 weeks, 5 weeks, I think. And so just make sure that you all respond to it when we put it up.
Okay.
But we got to know who you are before we can send it out.
You will know. You will know who I am.
Okay.
Okay, Michelle, Greg Morris again. I was just thinking, do y'all use the resources of your PTACs, your chambers, and all these different entities with that where there are minority businesses that are associated with those type organizations too?
So we will be contacting them. There's a letter that'll go out. I don't know, it'll go out probably in the next month or so, which is we're trying to put together a list of all of those organizations. So again, please tell us, they're the standard organizations we know everywhere we go, the NAACP, the Urban League, the chambers, the various ethnic chambers, the General Chamber of Commerce. We get all of those business, so we use them to help us to contact businesses. But if there are ones that about that we might not, are kind of more local and we may not know about them, please tell us so we make sure we contact them as well. And so we ask them to connect us to their membership. Okay, do I have any more questions, Omika, in the chat room? You see anything else?
Yes, so there was a question from Michael Bell. Will an analysis of unbid professional services be included in the study?
So yes. So it's not just what's bid, it's everything. So if there are emergency or sole source or awards that were informal, so they weren't bid out, those are all part of the study. So also says, also not quite sure how you will be narrowly tailored in your efforts by engaging data across the complete spend of all sectors. Could you revisit your explanation? So narrowly tailored is, so what has to be narrowly tailored? Our study looks at everything. And we look at it by sector, which is again what the case law says. You need to look at industry. So I'm looking at the construction industry. I'm looking at the services industry. And that's the level in which we can look at it. And so then when we're done with the study, we make recommendations based on those industries. As you carry out some of our recommendations, some of those recommendations as they're carried out will even be more narrowly defined. I'll give you a good example. If we are to find a disparity and we recommend that you put goals on what we call contract by contract goals on that are race and gender based. What we'll recommend the city to do is you have to do that by breaking down the scopes of work within a particular project. So if I have a project that is a construction project that is 60% concrete and 60% concrete, 20% hauling, and 20% structural steel, then those are my scopes of work. And I need to look particularly and set goals based on the firms who can do that type of work. So that becomes even more narrowly tailored. And again, how narrowly tailored we can get really depends on the availability of the data. How narrowly cast can we get the data? And if the data is not as narrowly cast as we would like it to be, then some of our recommendations will go to how the city moves forward in creating and maintaining data systems. We make a lot of those recommendations.
Michelle, Greg Morris again. Listen to what you just stated then. Some of the challenges that we have is when we deal with general contractors, they have their standards set too, and a lot of us are knocked out of the ballpark, either participating in the game just at that first level, right there, because for a number of reasons, I said what you're trying to do, what you're all trying to do is a great effort, and it's going to take a lot of work to change the mindset, the mentality, the procedures, the policies, to allow help this door open so minorities can come in and be at a let's say effective level of providing that services to the general contractors. It's everybody got to participate. That's all I'm trying to say.
Yeah, and that's exactly your point's well taken, because we've worked in jurisdictions. There is a mindset issue that obviously we can't control, but when our work is done, when we create the parameters for how this work is done and how it needs to proceed, and we in essence say, here's how you need to proceed to achieve these things. You're right, we're not here to control how that happens. You have legislators who are going to do that, and you have people who are running these programs who will help you do that. But you're right, there has to be a mindset. We can make this all day long. I mean, we've gone in jurisdictions where they have a great program on paper, great program. But then I see this actually happened, where they set a 20% goal on construction projects, and a $70 million construction project came in and was approved by the city council with 3% participation. But yet I've been to, and I will name them, in Fulton County, Georgia had a program in the 2000s that got challenged and got shot down. And they hadn't had a study and haven't had a program since 2000. And we went in to do a study for them a couple of years ago. And without a program, their numbers look great. To the point where they wanted all these goals and all these race-based programs. And we said, we can't give them to you because you're already doing a great job. And so, and why is that? Why are they doing a great job? They became kind of a model. And we said, why are you doing a great job when you don't have a program? And it's because, one, they have a centralized procurement system, which means that if your procurement chief, this is a priority for them, then they're watching what happens. And then every contract that comes into the county commission's office, they have to approve all the contracts. Soon as it hits that county commission, the first question they ask is, what's the minority participation? So if it's always comes from the top down, who cares? And who wants to see these houses? So if you don't have, you're right. I mean, we can help you put all these programs in place, but if we put a program in place and then you have what happened in this other jurisdiction, and a $70 million construction project comes through and the city council approves a 3% participation, there's nothing I can do about that.
Now, I agree. Now you hit the nail on the head there. That's exactly what's been happening to a lot of great minority businesses out here, and they're good. They're good, but hey, system just don't work against them sometimes. You know what I mean?
So what we're giving you is we're giving you the ammunition for which then your legislators can take up and do what needs to be done. And if they don't, that then you all as business owners and as voters can have at least the groundwork to do what you need to do. I have,
Exactly, and
I
I
have a
applaud you
question.
on y'all effort of, just getting this information out. 'Cause this is
So
really good.
I have a question. Could you speak to the legal grounds we will have once the study is completed that we don't have now to mandate minority participation? So that depends on the outcome of the study. So again, the study is what it is. We don't have any preconceived ideas what the outcome's going to be. We have to conduct an analysis. The analysis, depending on the analysis, will provide the parameters of your legal grounds. So if we find a disparity that is sufficient in each of those categories, then we can recommend a race and gender conscious program once we've looked at if there are race and gender neutral alternatives that can help in that area. But we are focused on things that help businesses to grow. So things like the things that help firms to build capacity. So and the point of view is, again, that the government can be a change agent in these areas. Even if we don't find a disparity by the city of Birmingham. In other words, we look at their spend and their spend is right in line with availability, but then we find discrimination in the overall marketplace, the city still can be a change agent for that. The city can take an active view in helping to develop small businesses and businesses in general. They don't have to, the city does not have to stand back and takes a hands-off approach in watching businesses develop. I have a couple of more questions in the chat room. As you look at opportunities for growth of your business, and this is Business Alliance. Thank you, Victor Brown. Will there be accountable once the study is completed? So we can't hold the city accountable. You have to do that. We're hired by the city to conduct the study. The city does not have input to the outcome of our study. So the city doesn't get to say, here's what we want you to say. Our study is objective. It is a separate study. Our findings are separate. Sometimes we will work with the city in terms of crafting remedies. But the study, everything in that study is what Griffin and Strong believes will help you to move your businesses forward, and that we believe are narrowly tailored and can be legally defensible. How often will the disparity study be done? Again, that's up to the city. Typically, they're done every 5 to 7 years in most jurisdictions, because whatever program we put in place has to have a sunset. You can't put in a forever program. Will the study include spend activities by City of Birmingham, external boards and agencies? No, it will not. It will only include, I believe there are 25 or so departments. So it's only where the direct spend is by the city. I think that's all the questions I have so far. Are there any more? I'll look and see, do I have any hands up? Okay, again, you all are welcome to contact us if you have any other questions. Look at the website, birminghamdisparitystudy.com. We're available to contact us. Again, we're very transparent about what we're doing. where we hopefully you'll find us accessible for questions, comments. We want to hear your stories. You know, that really helps us a lot. Okay. All right. Well, if there are no other questions, then we thank you all for attending. We hope that you'll participate along with us as we go down this journey that we're really just beginning, and we'll let you know the outcomes at the end. Thank you very much, everyone. Have a great day. Stay safe and stay well.
Thanks, everybody.
You too. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.